Hey, this is Amy Smith. I had a question the other day on my Facebook page about veiling techniques with acrylics. This first technique that I'm showing is a additive and subtractive type of process. You can see that I'm adding a goodly layer of acrylic paint here over top of a painting that I have already been working on a piece of canvas paper. You can do this on a watercolor paper as well. So I added a pretty good layer on there of acrylic paint. The background is really good and dry. And now I'm going in with a wet cloth to wipe away some of that paint that I just added on. Sometimes you need to wet it a little bit, so you can spray it with a bottle of water and go back in with your cloth and just rub at it. You can start to see now the layers of that yellow paint that I added on are being lifted up, and you can see some of the painting underneath coming through. I'm going to add a little bit more here in the corner because I want it to be a little bit heavier layer of paint in the corner here, so that there's sort of a gradation from the heavier veiling to the lighter veiling. You can use your cloth to move some of that paint into other areas of the painting too, if you want to carry it further in to other areas. And then don't be afraid to really get at it and wipe it really hard to pull those layers up. Wet it again if you need to. You can see it gives you kind of a ghosty sort of look, and you can see the layers of the painting that are underneath that are showing through now. The second technique I'm going to show you uses a dry brush. The brush that I'm using is a natural bristled brush. They're pretty stiff. It's good and bone dry. And it's a tapered brush instead of a blunt brush. And I'm just going to go in with a little bit of paint. You don't want to use a whole lot of paint in this particular technique. Just a little tiny bit at a time on your brush. And then I'm just going to go in and pounce the paint onto the paper, and then do sort of a scumbling technique to spread it around as much as I can into the areas where I want my veiling to go. And as I go along, I add just a little bit more paint and drag it around, and a little more paint and drag it around, and you'd be surprised how far you can carry just a teeny tiny little bit of paint like this into the areas that you want to veil. It's better to use less rather than more, too little rather than too much in this particular technique. But you can continue to work at it until you get it all smeared around to wherever you want it to be. Carry it into other areas of the painting. If you find that you've gotten too much in one area, you can always go back in with your damp cloth again, like we did in the first technique, and just to use that to lift some of the paint away until you get the level of ghosting that you want. And then, of course, if you want more, thicker, heavier layers, you can go back in with a little bit more paint and just continue to move that around. It's good to have, when you're doing the veiling, it's a good idea to have not an even layer of veiling, but you want some areas to be thicker and heavier and some areas to be lighter and thinner. So it sort of gives the painting an air of mystery. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial, and I hope you'll be watching for more to come. I'm Amy Smith. Thanks so much for spending your time with me.